In this video, I'm going to discuss how I am navigating a shift in my practice and, as a result, decks that I'm adding to my pass box and one I pulled out. Let's do it. There's definitely noise again today around me. It's Saturday. It's pretty typical for Saturday just because more people are home and, that just kind of comes with the territory. I'm going to do my best to sort of mitigate that noise as much as possible, but we'll see how it goes. Today I have an iced concoction. I mentioned in another video that I like iced drinks all year round, even in winter, iced coffee in particular. But what's interesting is that this is a drink that I normally reserve for summer and maybe early autumn. I don't know, for some reason I just associate this with summer and early autumn mostly, but I really was craving it today, and so I made one. And this is an iced mango Ceylon lemonade. Ceylon is a black tea that is cultivated and harvested mostly in Sri Lanka. It's beautiful. It's a lovely, light, kind of flowery black tea. Not as light as Darjeeling, but light in its own unique, special way. And the mango Ceylon I am using is this one from the Republic of Tea. They also make this in, they sell this in bagged form, but I prefer loose leaf whenever I can get it. And I just brew this up somewhat strongly, and I mix it with equal parts of homemade honeyed lemonade. I discovered this by accident. One of the coffee houses I go to they do really cool things with tea, and they have a whole menu of tea lemonade, and they serve Republic of Tea exclusively. And the tea I typically got for the tea lemonade I would get, they were out of, and so I went back over the list and they had mango Ceylon available, and I was just like, oh, I'll try that, whatever. And it was so good, I stopped getting the other one that I previously got, and I pretty much just get this one now, and I make it at home pretty much, because that coffee house is in a town that's like 65 miles away from me, and I don't have it there very often, so I just make it at home. And I make homemade lemonade year round because it's an amazingly versatile beverage. Just as a beverage itself, or as a cooking ingredient, particularly with poultry or pork, for like glazes and sauces, just because there's that lemon flavor as well as the sweetness, either from the honey. I typically do it with honey or sugar, and it makes a really lovely, sweet, kind of almost crackly glaze or coating or sauce, and it's delightful. Lemonade's just versatile, and I make it all the time. So, mango Ceylon lemonade for the win. Summer in a glass. So my son is out of town for the weekend. He is away working. He'll be back tomorrow evening, Sunday evening. And I have the house to myself. And I just thought, let's film a video or 3 today. I have 3 in mind. I don't know if I'm going to get that far, but we'll see. But this is the one I definitely wanted to do first. And it concerns a shift in my divination practice, and as a result of said shift, certain tools I have in my arsenal that are at my disposal are not being used, and I don't anticipate that they will be for the foreseeable future. And I am at a point where with these particular decks I am okay with moving them on. I'm staring at my pile right now. And these are all, spoiler, they're all Oracle. They're all Oracle decks. And that's part of what I want to discuss as far as the shift and the nature of the shift of my practice and how it involves Oracle. And all of these oracles are decks that I have gushed about, raved about even. I've had amazing experiences with all of them. But I'm at a point right now where I'm really dialing into a practice with Oracle that is working well for me, that is meaningful, a practice from which I am seeing actual tangible progress and results. And it's been helping me heal in a multitude of ways. And these decks that I'm going to be moving into my pass box at one time served a very important function for me as far as how I journaled with them. And if you watched my VR mashup, I went in a little bit of detail to how I got started with Oracle as a result of my journaling practice. And these decks that I'm going to show you here in just a bit were fundamental in helping me cultivate that practice and get acclimated to having it be a regular part of my everyday life. The reason why I haven't done a pass box video as far as offering up what I have in there is because deep down intuitively I knew there were other decks that needed to go in there, but I was kind of resisting that process at first, just because it was like, no, I love those. I love those. I knew which ones they were. But I was like, no, I love those. Why would I let those go? But I knew they needed to go, and I got each one of them out, and it was very clear that they needed to go. But yeah, I was resisting. I think a lot of it is sentimentality, just because it takes me back to the beginning sort of things for most of these. And a part of me was like, do I want to let that go? But it's important to let things go, because if we don't let things go, new things can't come in. And by new things, I don't necessarily mean new decks, although that could be part of it. But new things, as in new approaches and new thoughts about things that I already have. And I just feel like there needs to be a bit more room made for those things. I suppose I should probably point out that there are only four. There isn't a huge amount that I'm adding. It's four decks, and they're all Oracle. But I really wanted to make this video and go through this process because I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about what is working for me with regards to Oracle and how I am using Oracle for various aspects of my practice. I think I'll talk about that first and then move into the decks that I'm rehoming. And for that, I think I'll flip the camera around at a different angle, just because I think it'll turn out better. There will be timestamps in the description box in case you want to jump to various parts of the video and not listen to this piece where I talk about what is working for me, how I'm using them, and give you a couple of examples. So Oracle, what am I using Oracle for? I have three main, I guess, sort of areas or approaches in my practice in which Oracle is being utilized. The first way I'm using Oracle decks is for what I call keyword anchors. So these are decks that have cards with super simple, elaborative, more open-ended keywords or phrases. I'm using these decks for my anchor cards for my zodiacal seasonal readings. I do zodiacal seasons versus calendar months for the purposes of this practice, just because the seasonal approach as a whole resonates with me more, and so I do it that way. So at the beginning of each zodiacal season, I will select one of my keyword anchor decks. Either just intuitively, there's a deck I want to work with, or I'll draw a wooden tile out of my Oracle bag. I haven't talked about my tiles at all. I don't think I'm going to do that now, but maybe I'll do a whole video just on the little wooden tiles I've made. And it's just one more way to select a deck to work with if I don't feel particularly pulled or called to any one in particular, and I just want the universe to decide for me. I might do a video about my tiles, but not now. So I'll select a deck by whatever method I feel drawn to at the time. I'll go through my routine of oiling my hands and shuffling the cards and all that good stuff that I would do for any reading, and I will choose a single anchor card for that zodiacal season. I might also do this with the tarot reading if I feel a need for a reading to have a central theme or an anchor point. This doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while I do feel called to do that. But as a whole, I use these for my sort of zodiacal seasons for just kind of it's just kind of a focus or a single idea, just a single word or phrase, super simple to put my attention on and just sit with. And it's been one of the most extremely profound practices I've implemented since I've started working with cards and getting back into journaling. So a great example of a what I call a keyword anchor deck is the Soul Trees Oracle by Allison Williams Yee. This is an earlier printing. The box is different now. You can still get this. It is independently produced, but it is still available, I think, at this point. And I pulled this one out because it's the deck I'm working with now. And the anchor card I pulled for Pisces season was possibilities. Just that super simple keyword or phrase at the bottom that gives me an anchor for my zodiacal season. So this is my card for Pisces season. I went into this a little bit more in my Navigating Grief reading. I featured this card and talked about it a little bit more. But this is an example of just one of those nice, simple keyword decks. Mystery, freedom, release. Release is a verb as well as a noun. This assurance card, and I have been through it. I drew it twice last year after I started this practice. Communication. This is heavy into color as well. You can pull color in. Celebration. Wisdom. Just these really simple balance. Simple keywords or short phrases that just kind of provide that anchor point. This is one of the main ways that I'm using Oracle is for those super simple keywords to anchor my season or another reading that I'm currently doing. Another good deck example for this would be the Vintage Wisdom Oracle. I use that during Capricorn season. The Universal Folk I use during Aquarius season. Secrets of the Mystic Grove is another good one, as well as the self-care cards and the grace cards by Cheryl Richardson. Those are also really good decks for this purpose that I like to use. And it's just those decks with those short, sweet, simple keywords and phrases to anchor a reading or a particular length of time. In my case, usually it's a zodiacal season. So that's the first way that I am using Oracle currently. The second way I'm using Oracle is with my moon practice, my lunar practice. I might be in the minority when it comes to using cards for moon work, and that I don't use tarot. I did for a while, but I didn't find it as impactful for me as Oracle, because for me, my lunar practice is really important to me, and a lot of it I feel has to do with being a menstruating individual. That plays a major part for me just because my cycle is dark moon aligned, and so it's practical in that way for me, because even if I lose count of where I am in my cycle, even though I write it down in a multitude of places and I do have an app where I can just quickly look, if I know what moon phase is currently active, I know where I am in my cycle. And so for that purpose, it's practical. Another reason why my moon work has become so important to me is I feel is my moon, my lunar placement in my natal chart. I have moon in Capricorn in both Western and Vedic astrology. I work with Western. My Vedic chart doesn't resonate with me at all, but man, my little Capricorn moon is hanging on for dear life in both systems. But I have moon in Capricorn. It's not the most natural place for the moon to be. You know, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. It's not exactly the most touchy-feely sign, and that's where my moon is. And the moon is very much representative of the subconscious and one's inner world and feelings and desires and just things that happen inside. And For me, I can be extremely emotionally aloof, where I just don't get it, like at all, or I can do a complete 180, and I feel absolutely everything all at once, and then I just explode. There's no middle ground for me, really, when it comes to feelings, and there are other aspects of other systems that I've utilized for self-assessment that point to that as well. For example, in the human design system, I have a completely wide open solar plexus. It's lily white. There's nothing there, no gates, no activations, or no anything in my solar plexus. And your solar plexus in the human design system is the center for your feelings and emotions. It has its own wave. And I don't have anything there to anchor me emotionally in a fixed or particular way. I don't even have an activated gate that can flavor, a transit, or if I'm around somebody who has a defined solar plexus, like my son, who's emotionally defined, and that's his authority. But I have no fixedness in my emotions, and it can my pendulum swings very, very quickly in that regard. And something my moon practice has done for me is help me to get comfortable in just sitting with an idea or a concept. And I relate that back to my inner world somehow, depending on what deck it is or what card it is, and also what phase it is or what main phase. I don't work with each of the four main phases or even the 8 phases. I work with just the two main, what I call main umbrella phases of the moon, which are the waxing moon and the waning moon. So new moon to full moon to new moon. So just that overarching waxing and overarching waning. And I associate each of those phases with either increase, if it's new moon to full moon, or decrease, which is full moon to new moon. So just keeping it simple in that way. And I will draw a card from one of the decks that I find is useful for me for this practice. For example, the card I'm working with now during this waxing moon phase, because we're currently in a waxing moon phase right now. I think the full moon is on March 7th. At least where I am. I think it's March 7th. I have to go back and look at my calendar. So approaching a full moon, but not quite there yet. So we're still in that waxing phase. Increase, build up to that full moon. So the card I pulled to work with from this past new moon to this upcoming full moon, this period of increase, is this conflict card from the Supra Oracle. And what's really hilarious is I felt called to work with this deck for 2 phases in a row. I also worked with it during last season's waning moon, so the decrease. And I pulled the same card. I pulled the same card twice in a row. So, and when that happens, it's often for me an indicator that you missed something during the last one. So we're going to give it to you again, but this time in a different context. So I got this for the waning moon, the last waning moon, during a period of decrease. And for me, that was clearly, what can I do to decrease conflict? And that was a hard period for me, and I was feeling a lot of inner turmoil, and that was a real that was really on point for that particular period for me. And then I did some work, and then I put it away, and I was like, I'm gonna pull another card just to see. I'm gonna pull a card from the Supra again. I really wanted to work with the deck for another phase, and apparently I didn't do it well enough the first time, or I didn't do it to the potential that it could have been done. I didn't work on that decreasing conflict. So now for increase, the question I heard inside was, what can you do to mitigate the increasing conflict? Because there was still leftovers from that previous phase that hadn't been processed and dealt with thoroughly enough, and it was still making its presence known. So what am I doing to address the increasing conflict? So same card, two different contexts, you know. So using Oracle with my moon practice has been really profound. And I like Oracle for moon work more than Tarot, just because Oracle for me is way more open-ended. Tarot is a little more structured. And for me, Tarot is great for like sun work. It's that more kind of yang strategic sort of energy versus the moon that is more yin and receptive and open. So I like Oracle for moon work personally more than Tarot, just because of the openness aspect that it can bring in. Other decks I might use for my moon work include a deck like the Oracle of Ascendance. By it's a US Games publication. It's a beautiful deck. It's mass market. You don't see it very often. But this is essentially a deck of symbols, sacred symbols. And sometimes I might feel called to just work with a symbol within the given context of that main moon phase and just where I am. So this is another example. Deck of sacred symbols. Another example might be the wild unknown archetype. Sometimes I just really, really feel the need to work with an archetype, just a single archetype for that main moon phase, that main moon period. I might feel called to work with an animal energy. So maybe I'll pull out my Animal Allies by Jessica Swift. Materia Prima, another Usi deck, same maker as this one. That's another great one. And that really, Materia Prima really gets me kind of in my physicality and my body, just because it's a deck associated with the periodic table, and I really bring in that science-y kind of aspect and physiological aspect to that approach. And I've done that a couple of times on the increase, on the waxing phase, and it was really profound and just encouraging me to experiment with food and movement and just working with those things in a new and different way. And it can be extremely profound if you open yourself up a little bit and branch out as far as context is concerned. That's why I like Oracle. One of the many reasons I like Oracle for moon work. So Oracle of Ascendance is another example. So that's Oracle for moon work. The third main way I use Oracle is to get some practical advice. And I have been doing this with the decans as of late. I don't know if I'm going to continue with that once Pisces season is over, once Aries season comes, because I have an idea. I have a whole new idea for working with the decans. I don't know if it's because Aries season's coming up and that's the start of the zodiac year. I don't know if that's a thing, but I really feel a call to work with the decans in a bit of a different way. And there's something I'm envisioning that's very long term, and normally I don't project long term like that because, you know, it might not work, but I can envision it for the long term, and I might try it and it might not last, but it's that big picture perspective that helps me kind of hone in on what's going on now and how I can best work with it now. So we'll see where that goes. I'm going to make a video about, I've been wanting to make a decans video for a while, but it just hasn't seemed like the right time. But I think when Aries season comes, I think that might be the right time to do that, just because it's a good tie-in to kind of this vision that I have for working with the decans. That was extremely random. Let's get back to Oracle, shall we? Okay, practical advice from Oracle decks. There are a handful of decks that I have that do this beautifully. The one I've been gushing about recently the most in several videos and just in passing is the Wisdom of Hafiz Oracle. Each of those cards just gives a short, sweet, practical bit of advice. And I've been using that one pretty extensively. The one that I'm using now is actually The Secret Language of Color cards by Ines Segal. And my current card of advice is the Aqua card, which is Experience Peace and Calm. Peace and Calm? Yes, Experience Peace and Calm. And I love that it's 33 because I'm in a personal year 3 this year. And this aqua color directly corresponds to the color in my card of the year, which is the Hangman from the Tempest Tarot. It's in my bedroom. I'm not going to go get it. There are walkthroughs of that online. But just this color scheme and the 33 and the advice of experiencing peace and calm, it's so on point. I love decks like this that offer these really sweet, short bits of advice. Awaken your passion. some simple action-based thing that you can do. Black, find richness from the dark of night. I do wish this was better cardstock because I use it a lot and it's getting a little ragged. Blue, activate your healing power. Pearl, connect to the divine. Cherry, live an extraordinary life. I got this a few times last year. Particularly times when I was really in a slump, and this kind of helped me come out of that slump. Mauve, enjoy clear hearing. I got this one when I was kind of delving into intuitive hearing, particularly in my human design chart. I got this for an advice card, and it was so great. Ruby, rejuvenate your body. So just those nice, straightforward action-based phrases. I love decks that do this, and there are a couple others I would like to get. I want to get the other one by the Wisdom of Hafiz creator combo. They have another deck that's very similar, and I think that they're the same size, and I want to combine them. Practical advice, like experience peace and calm. Embrace my manifestor signposts and just have some peace. That's all I want. So that's the third way I use Oracle. So just to recap, keyword anchors, moon practice, and advice. I actually have a few decks that essentially have cards that can do all three of those things. And I have divided those decks into thirds, which sounds ridiculous, but it works really well. And one of the best examples I have of a deck that does that is the Connected and Free. Lauren Aletta, Inner Hue, creator of the Lumina Tarot. That was coming out mass market, and then it wasn't, and then it was again, and now it's not. I don't know what's going on. I'm kind of over that tarot, if I'm honest, just because, yeah, it's been a thing. I don't know. If it comes out again, I might, but I'm not holding my breath. This deck is an example of cards that do all three of those things. So here is my pile from this deck of the anchor keywords. So healing, decisions, communication, storytelling, surrender, family. Simple keywords, right? Open-ended. Can do a lot with those. So this is a significant chunk of this deck. So this is the keyword anchor portion. Then there are a handful of cards that are more contemplative in nature that I can use for my moon work. Sun's rays, feeling and form. This is a huge human design connection for me right there. Intuitive and psychic prowess. Higher knowledge. Receiving frequency. Solar plexus chakra. This deck has the chakra cards. So just cards like that are more contemplative, a little bit broader in scope and a bit more contemplative. I can use these in my moon practice. And then there are a handful of cards in this deck that have that advice piece. And actually I only pulled out, there's only 4, but they're really good. And if I felt called to this deck for that purpose, or if I drew it out of the bag, I would come to and choose one from one of these 4. So be you, something you can do. Think with your heart. Again, action-based. You are exactly where you need to be. Not necessarily action-based, but it's still advice. It's a reminder. I pulled this last year at a time when I really needed it. Slow down. Really good reminder, especially if you have an undefined sacral like me. Sorry, human design. I'm bringing human design into this conversation a lot. I'll try really hard to not do that anymore. So anyway, this is an example of a deck that does all 3 of those things. And so I have divided it up. And that's something I recommend to anyone who is struggling to connect with an oracle, is see what kinds of words and phrases are on the cards. And then if you're finding you resonate with some but not all, then just bring out the ones that you feel connected to and put the rest away, or use the rest maybe in a different way. So it's actually the Soul Trees deck has the chakra cards as well, and a couple of more expanded concepts. So I can use that in my moon arc as well. So the Soul Trees is another good example. This one. So that's essentially how I'm working with Oracle in a nutshell. Kind of a big nutshell. So once I kind of got this dialed in as far as Oracle decks, how am I using them? I went through my library of Oracles again to see which decks fit into any of those three uses and which didn't fit anywhere. And it was those decks that didn't fit anywhere that I felt it's time for those to go. And when I pulled them out and I looked at them, I was like, yeah, I haven't touched that in months. Haven't touched that in months. Haven't used that in months. And I like them all very much. I think all four of these are really, really, really good, but they're not filling a need anymore for me as far as that's concerned. And then I had 5 pulled out. And I'll feature this one really quickly before I turn the camera around. This is an example of how when you are really thinking this does not fit anywhere, but I still don't feel like I can get rid of it yet. This deck is going to be the death of me, I swear. And the one that I pulled out that didn't fit in any of those 3 areas, but potentially fits in a very specific niche area for me, kind of like how my Margaret Peterson tarot fits for my Gene Keys study. This oracle is fitting with a study that I'm beginning to engage in. And I had this pulled out and I was putting in the pile, and then I heard a voice. I hear my intuition. My intuition speaks to me like, it's sitting right next to me or standing right in front of me. And I just heard, read the introduction to the guidebook. I was like, damn it. Because I was like, this is going to be the time when this deck goes. And I don't consider it anymore because it's out of my life. And so I took the guidebook out and I read the introduction and I understood. I understood what my intuition was trying to tell me. So the deck in question is this one. The Sacred Rebels. This was a deck I featured in my deck reconnect video, my VR to Logan at Larkin Legend. He did a really great tag called Deck Reconnect for 2023. I did a VR to that video. And every deck I pulled out, if I remember correctly, was tarot, except for this one. And I put this one on my intention list to reconnect with in 2023 because I struggle with this deck. And I mentioned in that VR that it's the guidebook. It's Lana Fairchild's writing. For me, it's very over the top and I really don't get on with it. But what I do get on with is Autumn Sky Morrison's art. I have the older printing with the borders. I thought about taking the borders off. Then I saw the borderless edition and then I got mine out again to look at it and I was like, no, I like the borders. The borders are gonna stay. But this artwork is absolutely spectacular and I actually really feel like I want to get some of her work like for my home to hang up and display because it's so good. I can't get over it. And so I was like, okay, I get it. I'm connected to this deck through the art. I'm not connected through the guidebook. And then I heard, read the introduction to the guidebook. I was like, what? Why? I didn't understand until I reread the introduction. And then I understood. And I'll read the introduction because the introduction is actually quite good, even though I don't get on with her writing really at all. So the introduction reads, Sacred Rebels know that even if something has always been done in a particular way, a better way can always be found. Sacred Rebels question the way things have to be. They dare to dream of a healthier world based more in love than fear, where it is possible to live your dreams, manifest your heartfelt visions, and life is nourishing rather than a constant struggle or drain. Sacred rebels believe in love and defy those that say you need to live in the real world. Sacred rebels are living in the real world. Theirs is a world of love, possibility, individuality, and freedom. Sacred rebels refuse to be put down by those who are frightened of being truly alive. Sacred rebels are obedient only to their spiritual passion and individual values. These are the brave souls who want to heal the world by shaking things up, daring to be unique, and celebrating what makes them different. Rather than fearing individuality, the sacred rebel chooses to walk the path that is, perhaps, less traveled. That path holds more appeal because it has endless creative possibilities. The sacred rebel wants to live a life that is unique, as this suits them and their temperament. However, they also want a life that is authentic and sacred. Living a sacred life means so much more than surviving and existing. Sacred living is about creating beauty and passion in your world and sharing it with others. It allows your heart to rebel against that which would dull it and gives you permission to shine with truth instead. After I read that, I understood how this deck fits in my life. I got it. It took me a while. And the reason why it took me a while is because the conclusion I came to, it's a system that is related to this. It's a system I was aware of and I had dabbled in, but had never really taken seriously until recently. And it's the Enneagram. So I'm going to link a video that Farah Nadila that she did, because her video kind of spearheaded my newfound interest in the Enneagram, just because it's something that I realized, like, why didn't I pay more close attention to this before? I just wasn't in a place where I was ready to do so, I don't think. But I really think I needed to find human design first before I came more seriously to the Enneagram, because the Enneagram makes so much more sense to me now than it did before. And in the Enneagram system, I'm a type 4 wing 5. So if you know anything about Enneagram, then you kind of know maybe what the nature of the type 4 is all about. And this is where that fits for me. So I have a study with the Enneagram that I am kind of just dipping my toes into, and I am going to use this deck specifically for that. It's going to be very niche for me, at least for a while. Will it last? Who knows? Like with anything, don't know. We'll see. But for now, that's where that's going to be, and it's going to stay. So I had 5 pulled out, but after I was prompted to read the introduction to the guidebook, now I have 4, because that one stays. Okay, so now what I think I'll do is flip the camera around, because the lighting has gotten a little weird, and I think it will be better if it's a reverse angle. So I'm going to flip things around and get things set up, and then I will show you the 4 decks that I am moving on. And I'm back. And I'm feeling a bit of a sense of deja vu at the moment, because this is the same spot and same blanket that I used for my deck inventory video, and it's like giving me all the feels for when I did that video. Oh, flashbacks. I'll link that video as well, because I am going to reference it a little bit here. So I also feel that this might be a bit anticlimactic in a way, because all of the decks I'm going to show you, there's only 4, and they're all mass market. So they're really easy to get. I feel this is an important process for me to go through and just kind of talk it out, because I've talked out everything else regarding how I'm working with Oracle. So I think it would be good for me to just hash this out and do it on camera. So the 4 decks that I am adding to my pass box, and then I'll show you the one that I pulled out. And that one is actually a tarot. I had a dream about it, and I pulled it out of my pass box because it's just going to stay. But for the Oracle, I'm letting go. Again, I spoke very highly of all 4 of these. I do think they're great decks. 3 of them in particular, I think, are really good for beginners if you're just starting in your Oracle practice, just to kind of get you acquainted with the various kinds of decks and approaches that are out there. But the first one And it kind of broke my heart a little bit because this one was fundamental to me. Particularly last year in the summer, I journaled extensively with it and my creativity really started to come out, but it's just, it doesn't fit anywhere for me anymore and how I'm using it. And that is the Oracle of Mystical Moments by Katrine Wells Stein. This deck is so gorgeous. Her art is, it's so good. I did a reading with the Tarot of Mystical Moments. That was my Navigating Grief, my Pisces reading. And that tarot is so beautiful and it made me very emotional. And it's part of it was the art, but part of it was just what came out as a result of me looking at the art. And this oracle was the same as far as journaling and where it took me in that regard. But if you look at the titles, they're a little more non-specific and abstract, which is not always a bad thing. It can be a very good thing if you like to do intuitive writing exercises, which is essentially what I use this deck for. But it doesn't have those simple keywords or phrases. It doesn't have advice. And it's not one I feel connected with regards to my lunar practice. And I don't feel that there's a niche for it as far as any studies that I'm doing. These are almost like the titles of poems or chapters in a novel. But the art is beautiful. If you want a deck that you're just purely using the visuals, this one is a great option. As is the Elizabeth on Earth sets. I don't know if those are still available. Those are independently produced. They were available on Etsy, but the art was kind of similar to this, but there were no titles, just the art. That's another good option for visual intuitive practice. But this is art I would hang on my wall. It's like the Moonchild, the Moonchild Tarot that I talked about in my Deck Crush VR. Art I would hang on my wall. But from a divination standpoint, not working. Or even from a creative standpoint anymore, not working. I got this out the last time and I just felt that overwhelming. It's time to let it go. And I'm going to. And I just can't believe it because I gushed about this deck in my deck inventory video. And I still think it's incredible. And I think you can get a lot out of it depending on the context in which you use it. But for me, it's just, yeah, it just doesn't fit for me anymore in my practice. So I will add this to my pass box. Oracle of Mystical Moments. That is deck number 1. Deck number 2 is the Enchanted Map by Colette Baron-Reid. This is a great deck. I found this deck to be really, really good for work or passion project related readings or contemplations or anything kind of in that regard. But again, and I have the older printing with these backs. It's very shiny, glossy. And the parchment like borders. I actually like this version better than the new printing. But trying to find an angle that's not, I guess it's as good as we're gonna get. But yeah, again, same kind of thing. A little more story-like. And lately too, I'm finding if I want to do creative writing or creative journaling, I am getting more out of working with tarot for that purpose than I am out of Oracle. Tarot for me is really, I saw this card was the one that made me want to buy the deck. But yeah, tarot is working really well for me for that practice versus decks like this. Jenna Della Grottaglia is the artist. I've noticed she's been a bit prolific with, is it Rockpool? I think she's done 1 or 2 decks for Rockpool. I think that are either out or coming out. But yeah, same kind of thing. It's not fitting for me anymore, and so I'm going to move it on. So yeah, earlier printing with the parchmenty borders and these backs. So yes. Deck number 2 going to the pass box is Enchanted Map by Colette Baron-Reid. Deck number 3 is a deck that actually I've had 2 copies of over the course of my process, because I ruined my first one by trimming it, and then they reprinted it, and the version I got first was the version that I wasn't expecting, because there was a particular card I wanted, and that was in the original version, and the version I got first was the new version, so that card wasn't in it. And I was kind of bummed, but I made it work for a while. That is Wisdom of the Oracle, another Colette Baron-Reid. This deck was reprinted. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. The card I originally saw that made me want the deck was the Fates card. But by the time I got this deck, it had been reprinted and the Fates card had been changed. And the new Fates card was beautiful, but it wasn't the one that I saw that prompted me to get the deck. But again, really similar, almost kind of story-like, not fitting anywhere for me. And I haven't touched it in ages. I haven't touched any of these in at least probably 5 or 6 months. The last one I think I used was Oracle of Mystical Moments, and that was during the summer of last year. I think that's the last time I used any of these. There's the original Fates card. This was the card that made me want the deck. And somebody was selling this on one of the Facebook groups, and I asked her if she would send me a photo of what her Fates card looked like, and it was this one. And so I bought the deck from her. And I learned the hard way with my first one that I think the borders on this deck actually look good. So yeah, again, great deck, good for beginners, I think, but not fitting in my practice anymore. So it is going in my pass box. Wisdom of the Oracle, Colette Baron-Reid. The fourth and last deck going into my pass box is the one that surprised me the most. But I did a journaling exercise with it. Oh no, this is the one I've used most recently, because I did that not that long ago. I did a journaling exercise with it, and I heard very clearly it was time to go. And what I got from it was a little bit flat, and I was like, okay. It was kind of jarring, just because this is a deck I have raved about over and over again. And it was actually in my only 10 mass market decks VR that I did toward the end of last year. I included this deck in that video, and so yeah, I'm still kind of shocked, but holding it now, I know it's the right decision to let it go. And that is the Wisdom of Avalon, another Colette Baron-Reid deck. The only Colette Baron-Reid deck, oh no, I have 2. The Colette Baron-Reid decks I have that I'm keeping, at least at this point, are the Mystical Shaman and the Good Tarot. I'm keeping those, but these other 3 I'm letting go. I still think this deck is really great. I think it's one of the most underrated mass market oracles out there. I said that before, and I hold to that. It's really great. It's got a title. It's got some keywords. It's got numbers. You know, it has a lot to work with. This deck for me was it provided a bit of escapism. And I'm finding that I don't need that as much anymore. And as far as the escapism goes, I'm finding that, and like stream of consciousness writing and things like that, I am getting more from writing about tarot readings that I've done, or Cledons that have come to me, or just things in my everyday life. I'm getting more from my writing process from those things than I am from decks like this, which was not always the case. That's right. This says the copyright down here. I forgot about that. It's so faint. I barely know it's there. But anyway. So yeah, I know I'm going through kind of a monumental shift when I know it's time for this one to go. It's really great, I think. But again, not fitting for me anywhere anymore. So that is the fourth and final. This one does have blingy edging. Ooh, it's shiny. And those are the backs. So yeah, time to let Wisdom of Avalon go. I'm still kind of shook. But yeah, it's just so crazy how things can change so quickly. And really it's okay if that happens. We grow and change and morph all the time. And our practices, I feel, often are a representation of that process. And it's okay to evolve and change and let go of certain things to bring new things in, whether that's tools or perspectives or other practices. Before I forget, I have to show you the tarot that I pulled from my past box that's staying with me because I got into this fixed way of thinking about not holding on to certain decks because I already had one that was similar or essentially exactly the same. But I was like, I don't need the other one because I already have it. But that being said, it's in a category of tarot that I've decided I'm going to allow myself to have a small kind of curated collection within my library of decks because this particular type of deck is very meaningful to me and I love them. And those are the old Italian style decks. So the deck I put in my pass box because I already had another copy was the Lo Scarabeo Anima Antiqua Tarocco Sopraffino. This was part of the limited series that they did. It has this really cool kind of top loading box. But I put this in my pass box because I already have the Il Meneghello Sopraffino and I have the Ancient Italian, which is a good chunk of that deck is essentially the Sopraffino, and the Ancient Italian is mass market. It has Avando minors and the Sopraffino majors, and I think the quartz as well. But I was like, I don't need to keep this one because I already have the Il Meneghello version. But I love this little deck. I love this little tarot. The size is it's about the same size as the Il Meneghello, but it's so wee. I like it. It's not as small as a mini deck, and it's more taller. It's taller than a mini deck, but and the cardstock is it's sort of like the Make playing cards, kind of standard smooth, but even more satiny, and it's slightly thicker. Again, not a cardstock snob, but the the tactile hedonist Taurus ascendant in me just really likes the way this looks and feels and sounds and is how it's just kind of presented overall. And I decided that, yeah, I have the Il Meneghello. Ooh, I'm getting a shadow. I have the Il Meneghello Sopraffino, but I'm going to keep this one too. The Italian decks for me are what the RWS is for a lot of others, or the Thoth or the Marseille. I have one RWS, I have one Thoth, I have two Marseille. Neither one of them are traditional Marseille at all, although I am gravitating toward that, which I never thought I would say because I don't particularly care for the woodblock style of Marseille. But like I said, we grow and evolve and change, and I just might have to bring one or two of those in to my library. But the old Italian decks are for me what those others are for many others. And so I just decided I can collect the Italian decks, the ones that I like and that are within my means at that time. I can have those and it's fine. Because for me, I like to study those and be nice to have some to compare. And so I'm just gonna hang on to this to this lovely, lovely little thing. There's also a little guidebook. You know, it's Lo Scarabeo, so we're going to be minimal on the information in each language, but it's got kind of a cool little historical piece that I need to go back over. Yeah, I need to read that. And it's got a really nice little card, and yeah, it's okay. It's okay for me to keep this one. It really is. And I just love the way, I just love everything about it. And so this one got pulled out and I'm going to keep it. So the Tarocco Soprafino Lo Scarabeo stays. So that's it for this video. There will be, I've said it in a couple other times, there will be a video about my pass box that's coming. Logistically, I want to make sure that I'm set up for success and that I'm in a good state of mind and feeling when I go about that process. I actually would like to have a lot of that finished and some of these moved out by the time my son and I take our trip, which is in early April. And, you know, spring is coming and that whole spring cleaning thing. So I'm really kind of feeling pumped about getting that video filmed and ready to go. And so I am gonna put some attention on that. It's going to be it's going to be long. It's going to be, I'm not breaking it up. I mean, it's going to be just like how I did my deck inventory video. It's going to be in one foul swoop, just ripping the band-aid off. I will have things categorized by tarot and oracle and whether it's mass market or independently produced, or out of print. Do I have anything out of print? I don't think I have anything out of print in there, but I will break it up like that, and there will be timestamps, so that might help people navigate it a little bit more. So I am going to be working on that kind of here and there in pieces and getting that up and ready to go, because I feel like I'm starting to get into a good place for that. So these 4 will be added to what I put in my pass box the first time, and will be available once that video comes out. So yeah, that's all I have. Until my next video, take care and be well.